is Felger and Mazz, your favorite afternoon show.
Yes, 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 yes.
Felger and Mazz.
His frustration lies deeply within the organization and other things that,
of course,
we don't really have
that
details to. There's just been a lot of stuff, that I've been hearing just going on with the Boston organization, with JB, so I think part of him is like, I showed you guys more of who I am as a basketball player, not only just, what I did on the basketball court, but the leadership that I displayed within, this team. And you've seen that, not having our, best player in JT. You've seen a different side of me and what I'm able to bring to the game of basketball. So all that stuff, I think just came into play with him and his frustration.
Close friend of Jaylen Brown, Jaylen Brown's mentor in some respects, saying that Jaylen Brown has frustrations that lie deep within the Celtics organization. Let's use that as a jumping off point to get to Gasper. And Gasperino, he joins us now via Zoom from the Boston Globe. Christopher, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Great. As usual, Gasper is brought to you by Premier Basement Waterproofing. Our guy, the guru, Mike Albert, would have been 47 yesterday. The late, great Mike Albert would have been 47. And we know he's up there so proud of his kids, Grace, Noah, Logan, and his dad, Jerry, absolutely crushing it. As the number one waterproofing company in New England, we even got a shout out today from Scottsdale, Arizona.
We did.
Who have used Premier and know just how good these guys are and what a legacy that Mike Albert has left for his family. They'd also like to wish all the moms a happy Mother's Day. So call 844-LIVE-DRY or visit premierbasement.net. At that point, it's what then? What is it?
Game over for water.
Gasper, do you think that Jaylen Brown has frustrations that lie deep within the Celtics organization? And if so, what are they?
I don't think that he has frustrations that lie deep within the Celtics organization. Do I think he has frustrations? Yeah, I do. And I think part of what is happening here with these Tracy McGrady comments and then what Jaylen Brown said afterwards on the Twitch saying he wants to be here, I think he just wants to be treated like an equal of Jason Tatum. I'm not saying he wants Jason Tatum to be off to the side or he wants to be above Jason Tatum. I think he just wants to be treated like an equal. And there are times based in the past on stuff that I've heard or read about the Celtics organization that, Tatum has afforded a certain amount of influence in the organization and they check with him on certain decisions and he has immediate access to the coach and the president of basketball operations. And I'm not saying that Jaylen doesn't have immediate access to those guys, but I think that there is a feeling there that there's like a separation. That Tatum's on one tier in terms of influence and importance to the franchise and that he's on another one. And after this season where not only did they play well, but it's funny, someone in the organization I was talking to maybe 6 weeks ago, and one of the things they were talking about with Brown's leadership was how much it helped develop other players on the team. That his confidence, his belief in those other guys, the Shiremans, the Hugo Gonzalez's, even someone like Peyton Pritchard, who won Sixth Man of the Year last year, that was something that went further in developing those guys and giving them confidence than anything they could ever get from the coaching staff. So I think it's stuff like that he just wants to be appreciated and recognized for and sort of put on the same pedestal as Tatum.
Chris, just because it happened prior to Game 7, and I think I don't know how much attention it's gotten, but do you think Brown was properly kept abreast of what was going on with Tatum as Game 7 approached? He seemed to be surprised that Tatum, that he found out late that Tatum wasn't playing.
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly. I don't know, Mazz, to answer. I have no idea what that process was like with the Celtics when Jaylen Brown found out, how close to the vest they kept it with other people. I honestly have no idea.
But is that the kind of stuff we're talking about, like being in the loop and being, having access to the coach and the president of basketball operations?
I think it's more like direction of the team stuff. And not that I want to go through the whole history, but you have to understand like how it started with Jaylen with the Celtics and what it's been like. He gets drafted 3rd overall in 2016, they're booing him. Right? He was the guy that had to sit when Gordon Hayward came back. He was the guy, he started like 25 games that year because they showed all this belief in Hayward. And honestly, Hayward never earned that playing time. But it was like, hey, we feel like the best version of our team includes Gordon Hayward getting back to what he has to do. So it was Jaylen Brown who had to be the one who sacrificed for that. Obviously, he had the wrist injury in 2021. The team goes out in 5 games, and it's like, well, what did you expect Tatum to do? They didn't have, Jaylen Brown. Nobody ever knocks Tatum for not. Tatum hasn't won a single playoff series without Jaylen Brown. No one ever knocks him for that. But, the reverse kind of happens to Jaylen. The fact that Al Horford left the team, in part, obviously, there were issues when it came to the second apron, but Al Horford didn't really believe the team could do anything with Jaylen as the leader. So all that stuff adds up. And I didn't even mention all the trade discussions, but all that stuff sort of adds up to a point where you're like, well, what do I have to do to be appreciated like that guy's appreciated by you guys?
Well, do you think he can be satisfied on this front? Do you think there's a path for the Celtics and all the noise and all the talk and all the things that are affecting him? Can that all be corrected to his satisfaction, do you think?
Yeah, and this is not inside information. This is not from him or anyone in his camera. Yes, I think it can. I think a little bit of appreciation, and let's be honest, ego stroking goes a long way. And some of that, honestly, too, I think sort of has to come from the fan base. I think some of that has to come from the fan base in terms of, pretend he's Marcus Smart. And I think you people will be okay if you move like that. Move like that, and I think you'll be okay. So I do think it can be fixed. Look, he had the statement. I take him at his word that he wants to be a Celtic and remain here, and that he didn't want Brad to have to sort of answer those questions. So I'll take him at his word at that. And I also think he's a smart enough guy to know what this situation is in terms of winning and the ability to win. I mean, he is the same guy that said to Taylor Rooks. Now, players say a lot of crazy things to Taylor Rooks, but, a couple of years ago in the interview talking about winning 4 or 5 championships, if you want to go to Milwaukee and be the guy, that's great, but you're not winning another championship. I think he's smart enough to realize it. He'd never say it, the competitor that he is, but I think he's smart enough to realize that and realize what the situation is here. And it'll be interesting to see what the Celtics do from the standpoint of, I know there's some people that want to move on from him, and I'm sure we'll get into that this hour, but I just think that's a dangerous thing to do when you're not 100% sure what Jason Tatum's durability is going to be moving forward. Obviously, Tatum played great in the series. He was the Celtics' best player. He looked really, really good, but now you're looking at the second straight postseason where he can't finish it. Obviously, last year was a fluke thing. He had no control over that, but I do think you sort of have to see what kind of load you can put on him moving forward before you decide you're going to rip it up and change everything up and move off somebody like Jaylen Brown, even if it's for somebody like Giannis.
Chris, he's now eligible, Brown is, for a 2-year, $142 million extension. Yep. Do you think they will give it to him?
I mean, I think they should, just because the reality is he's under contract for 3 more years. The last year of that deal is $64 million that he already has. So you just said 2 years, 142. I mean, that's only a bump of $7 million a year, and it doesn't preclude you from trading him. So if you want to, in fact, it might make it easier to trade him down the line if another team knows he's already tied up and under contract. So I would put that in sort of the ego stroking category. If I'm the Celtics, I look at that. That's not really asking a ton in terms of giving him that extension, because you could still trade him down the line if you decide you need to get back under the luxury tax again, or you want to go in a different direction. That sort of seems like a no-brainer to me to just offer it to him. The question maybe on the bigger question maybe is in his mind, do you take it? Do you take it? I would take it, obviously. You could be Carmelo Anthony, you get your money, and then if you decide you want out, you ask for a trade. But there's also the idea of, well, if I don't take this, I could be a free agent in 3 years.
Is it 2 or 3 that he's got left?
I believe he has 3 left.
Sounds right.
Okay. So, Chris, you think Brown gets too much of the blame on the floor for what happened here?
Yeah, I do. I mean, look, he it wasn't good enough. The series he had wasn't good enough. They needed him to be great, and he wasn't. He wasn't great. I'm not even sure I'd say he was good. I think he was, acceptable in this series. But if I'm looking at if I take the Celtics as a team and I say, okay, here are the 4 principles that had the most to do with their success during the regular season. And here's the order I would give you. Jaylen Brown, Joe Mazzulla, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, right? take those 4 guys, and then I take the same 4 guys and I go to the playoff series and I say, who underperformed the most out of those 4? I would rank it as Mazzulla, Derek White, Pritchard, and Brown. I think he underperformed the least out of those 4 guys that were such a big part of what they did in the regular season. I would say what he gave you in the playoffs was maybe 75, 80% of what he was in the regular season, and they needed more. They needed him to be 95%. But the other guy, like White, that was maybe like 20% of what he was in the regular season. Mazzulla, maybe like 50%. Pritchard, 50%. The other guys underperformed to a greater degree than he did. And so now the question becomes, okay, do you just want to put it all on the number 1 guy and say, this is the way it is in the NBA, win or lose, it's all on the number 1 guy? If you want to do that, that's fine. We can do that. But then we have to go back and relitigate the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals, because when they lost that, it was that one was on Jaylen, not on Jason Tatum. So you kind of have to make up your mind. Is it about some of the other guys, or is it just all about the number 1 guy? Because if it's all about the number 1 guy, then it has to be on Tatum in 2023. You have to give Jaylen Brown probably more credit for the 2024 NBA championship than he gets. That's kind of where I'm coming from. I feel like it's inconsistent that he gets a disproportionate amount of the blame when they lose and doesn't get the full amount of credit that you would do proportionally to the blame you're giving him when they win. He can't be responsible for both 2023 and this one as the primary person. That doesn't add up. It's not consistent.
I'd just like to see this shaken up. I think running it back with both of them is not going to change anything. One guy can't stay healthy in Tatum, and then the other guy tweeted like 20 times since the beginning of the season that he can lead a team to the 2 seed just for him to go out there and play like ass in round 1, and you get locked up by a guy that's almost 40 in Paul George. And their title's fake, because they had the easiest run ever. So I don't think anything's going to change. It's going to be more of the same if they don't do something.
What do they have to do, Chris, to make a change?
I would look, there's major changes they could make. You could change the coach. Now, I wouldn't do that. I think it's too early for that. Obviously, you could move on from Brown, because I don't think they'll trade Tatum. I just don't think they would. You technically could trade either one of them, but I don't think they're going to do that. So you could do that. What would I do at this point? I would trade Derek White. To me, that's, and we could talk about this more on the other side, and that's not blaming him for the whole series, but I'll just say he makes more than $30 million. He's going to be 32 on July 2nd, so I don't think he's going to get any better. I don't think he's going to get a lot worse, but I just don't think he's a player who's trending upward at this point. And some of the stuff that he gives you, like the defense, you can get from younger, cheaper guys like Hugo Gonzalez. Like, if he's going to shoot like that, the way he shot 27% from 3 in the series. He shot 29% overall in the fourth quarter. He gave you one good half of offensive basketball. And I know he scored the 26 points in Game 7. I'm saying one good half. He was 3 of 13 in the second half of that game. He gave you one good half. So for $30 million, I would move him and redistribute the resources on my roster and see if I can move him for a legitimate big and maybe a younger, less established guard that now goes into the rotation, and Peyton Pritchard bumps up into the starting lineup. Right, that's the move that I would make to shake it up.
Let's pick this up on the other side with Gasper and your calls right after this.
Felger and Mazz continues on the Sports Hub.
A lot of stuff swirling around the Celtics and the organization. Hate that our president of basketball operations even had to respond to this. Me and Brad have a great relationship. I love Boston. If it was up to me, I could play in Boston for the next 10 years. I'll say it again. I hate that I hate that Brad even had to respond to this. Like I said, me and Brad had a great relationship, and I can play in Boston for the next 10 years. I love Boston. So with that being said, moving on, I say this and I stand on this again. Y'all can clip this up. This was my favorite season of my career. Like, I will say it even louder. Like, this, I stand on it. I triple down, quadruple down, whatever y'all want me to say, chat. You know what I mean? And I'm coming on here to give context and talk about certain things, but I'm really not here to clear up no backlash or to, I'm really here to add context, because a lot of people in the media and or social media don't always kind of select to use their brain.
Jaylen Brown's all this twitching and streaming and all this stuff this week.
Yeah, I don't love it. And look, the thing I like about Jaylen Brown is that he is more than just an athlete, and he's very clear about that. And he wants to be a three-dimensional person, and he's passionate about a lot of things. But you got to realize when you do this Twitch thing, I mean, this is not like an OnlyFans where people are just there to like drool over you. Like when you go on this thing, this sort of reminds me of like the Chappelle Show skit when Keeping It Real goes wrong. You got to treat this exactly the same way you treat a press conference. Like, I get it. You want to talk to the people. You want to keep it real. You want to be direct. But he's smart enough to know that stuff is going to get chopped up, and that's the things you say. So even if this is the favorite season of your career, yeah, you do have to give it a little bit more context. And you do have to make sure you say, hey, it has nothing to do with the fact I was the one, or that Jason was out, or all that stuff, because people are just going to assume. There's no way he would ever say any of the things that he said the way he said them in the Twitch stream in a press conference. And you have to handle it the same way. That might not be fair, but I'm sorry. That's just the reality of being an athlete and being a public figure in 2026. So you sort of, and this is one of the areas where I really sort of part with Jaylen Brown, is he has this habit of, he blames the media. And like, I get his thing with Stephen A, because Stephen A used an unnamed source basically to say on the air one time that people don't like him and that's why he's not marketable and all that. So I'm going to put Stephen A off to the side. But, when he does this thing about, oh, this is just clickbait, which is flopping for media. No, this is how it works. And if you don't clarify your stances and you don't stand up and provide context to stuff, and you just go on a stream and it's like the stream is also a stream of consciousness, then yeah, people are going to fill in the blanks. And that's the reality. And you're smart enough to understand that. And you have to know that and take that into account. So I don't love the Twitch stuff, but if he's going to keep doing it, and he did it all season, and it was fine for the most part. But if you're going to do it, you have to understand how it's going to be perceived. And you can't sort of just play the victim when people take stuff that you said and it goes out in the media because you let your guard down and said something in a way that you would never, ever, ever, ever say in a media interview. That stuff's open for consumption, just like everything else, every time you talk to the media.
He shouldn't walk it back. And once it's out, he knows how it's going to play. He's trying to burn the bridge. I think he wants out. I think he wants to be moved.
Chris?
I mean, look, maybe. I haven't gotten that impression. Maybe there's some truth to that. But I will say this about him, that he's the type of guy that if he honestly wanted out, he wouldn't have like Tracy McGrady doing his bidding, and he wouldn't do it passive aggressive. He would just come out and say, like, I want out. That's my belief.
Chris, if they did move Jaylen Brown,
yes,
what would be a good return for them? What would you want them to do?
Ooh, that's a good question. I haven't really thought a ton about that because I don't think they should move him. I would say this. Look, Giannis would be a good return. I just don't know if it would work because Giannis, as you know, is a ball-dominant guy. So you're trading sort of one problem for a different problem. Giannis doesn't shoot threes, so if now floor spacing becomes a problem and you're clogging up the paint for Tatum. Giannis also is 32. Jaylen Brown, or will be 32 this coming season. Jaylen Brown will be 30. So you're getting a little bit older, and you're still relying on a guy who relies a lot on his athleticism. So Giannis is a bigger name, no question. Giannis has had a better career, no question. Is Giannis a better fit? Big question, at least in my mind. I don't think that's like an automatic, that's a great fit with Tatum moving forward. And also, I would question, and you've seen more of him than I have, how is Giannis as a perimeter defender at this point in his career?
Oh, he sucks on ball. He can still come from the weak side and swat you, but they don't even put him on good players. Like I don't know if he's ever been a good on-ball defender. Certainly not now. But he rests on.
That's something you would lose with Brown. I think if you're going to do this, maybe I would look at a team. Let's see what, say, hypothetically, a team like San Antonio, right? And could you get back somebody like Stephon Castle or some of their young players, where you're getting young players with a lot of runway, a lot of upside, Dylan Harper, that guys that you could put around Tatum for years to come who could become all NBA type talent. But now if you do that, right? And I'm saying that's what I want as a return. If you do that, now the problem is, does their timeline for when they hit their peak line up with Tatum's? So that becomes an issue.
Okay, we got some more things to hit on with Gasper. We'll do it right after Murray's update. Don't go anywhere. Whee! Goalie fight.
Felger.
Whee! Look at the goalie fight.
Oh,
Mazz.
oh my God.
Murray.
He sucks in the playoffs.
That's great. No.
98.5.
Wonderful. Good.
The Sports Hub.
All right, back with Chris Gasper here. 3 items. Number 1. Chris, do you think the Celtics fully understand the situation with the three-pointer?
Absolutely not. No. And, good question, obviously, by Mazz and others at the press conference with Brad Stevens. But I don't know who asked the question, but about 10 minutes in, there was a question that was asked that was along the lines of Stevens had been talking about the roster and was talking about, well, do you guys feel like the roster fits what you're doing with the threes? And I thought that was a great question because the reality is it was shown in the playoffs that it didn't. We talk about that starting lineup they threw out there with Luka Garza and Ron Harper Jr., and obviously Baylor Shireman was in there. But all the energy guys, Garza, Ron Harper Jr., Shireman, Ugo, Jordan Walsh, those guys were 0 for 12 for no points in Game 7, which is bad enough. Do you realize 11 of the 12 shots they took were threes?
Oh, my God.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not
That's
surprised,
ridiculous.
but did not realize it. Go ahead.
That's absurd. And to me, that's more than the roster. That speaks to the coach. And there's no way. And look, some of those guys shot the three well during the regular season. Garza did. Shireman did. I get it. But the playoffs are a different deal. So that speaks to the coach also being adamant about the fact and dogmatic about the fact that there's not really that much of a difference between the regular season and the playoffs. That's one of the reasons that they've lost these series. And also just sort of applying a one-size-fits-all approach to the roster in the playoffs that he didn't really apply in the same way to the regular season. There's no way. That's a problem. Organizationally, they have to look at that. And you can't just say those are good shots or open shots. And what frustrates me the most about the Celtics with the threes, it's not the sheer volume of it. It's the hypocrisy of it. And Murray knows this. We'll go back to the regular season. There's that game where they shoot lights out from 3 against the Lakers at the Garden. And J.J. Redick comes out and does the thing that they do. And he says, well, analytically, that was an anomaly. They wouldn't shoot that well. In an expected world, we would have won that game. But Missoula is telling you that it's all great offense. Then they go to Milwaukee and they shoot the 3 like absolute garbage. And Missoula tells you, well, that's an anomaly. Those were actually good looks. So when the threes go in, it's all them. It has nothing to do with anomalies and analytics and outliers. It's all them. When they miss, then all of a sudden it's, anomalies, outliers, all this stuff. Never mind the fact that the playoffs are not a big enough sample size to use this process. The playoffs, in playing one team up to 7 times, the variance is going to be too wide for you to just sort of stick to your process. So this is an organizational problem. And also the other thing they don't get is they would tell you, well, VJ Edgecombe made some threes we didn't think he'd make. You have to give something up. And, Embiid, he's killing us in the middle. You have to give something up. So we gave up some threes to Embiid. But when it comes to their shots, it never occurs to them, or they never say, well, Nick Nurse was willing to give up that 3 to Derek White because he shot 27% in the series. Or Nick Nurse knew that was Jordan Walsh. Because what the Sixers did after Game 4 was they stopped doubling as much, in my mind, and they started to sort of build layers to prevent Brown and Tatum from getting to the rim. And so the Sixers were totally content giving up some of those threes. But the Celtics delusionally will tell you that they generated all those threes on their own, and almost all of them were good looks. Not that the other team was willing to surrender some of those shots along the lines of, well, you have to give up something, and we'd rather give up the threes.
Chris is so right about this part of it. Again, the Celtics are totally freaking delusional when it comes to this part of it. Because what do they say when they miss a lot of threes? They say, well, we're due to make them.
Well, then good looks.
Right. And no, not only that, but we're due to make them.
Yeah.
The numbers suggest that we are a 36% shooting three team, or whatever the number is this year. So they're going to go in now. That's what's going to happen. But when they're shooting 45%, they don't stop taking them because they say, well, we're going to end up at 36. They just think they're smarter than everybody else.
Item number 2, thoughts on Tatum sitting out of Game 7?
Yeah. I would like to hear more about this. I mean, again, I heard Brad I've only heard it referred to as knee stiffness or knee tightness. And I would say this. I said this on BST. I'll repeat it again. I know people aren't going to like it, but I'm going to say it. I think it's worth asking that if the bar was so low in terms of any sort of nagging injury that he was going to shut it down, it's fair to ask if it was fair to the team for him to even come back. Because this is a really low bar in my mind, barring more information. And maybe, Shams has something and something leaks that this is more serious than we thought. But I'm only going on what we've heard, which are that it was knee stiffness or knee tightness. And what Tatum said himself, which he said, quote, I know for a fact I would have been able to play in the second round. He didn't say which game, so maybe he would have missed games 1 and 2. I don't know. But he said, I know for a fact I would have been able to play in the second round. That's a really low bar. And no one's going to make it through the playoffs without some sort of nagging injury. And if this bar was this low for him to sort of shut it down, that's a problem. Also, something that caught my ears in Brad's press conference when they were talking about making that decision on Tatum was he said it didn't look right and it didn't feel right. Well, who's the only person who would know how it feels?
Tatum, obviously.
Tatum. So this whole thing's been passed off as basically like he had no choice. They shut him down. Whatever the leg strength was at, he didn't have a choice. But when you say it didn't feel right, unless Brad meant it just didn't feel right to the organization to ask him to play Game 7, and I'm misinterpreting it, which I will allow as a possibility. But when he said it didn't feel right, I interpreted it as because he's talking about Tatum going through a workout on the Saturday of the game and said he didn't look right and it didn't feel right. The only person who would know how it feels is Tatum.
Listen, I'm confused on the thing. I always think the Celtics underplay their injuries. They lie about them like just crazily. But it's always on the side of Garnett's okay. Yeah, we're expecting Shaquille O'Neal back. Kemba Walker's nothing to worry about. Kyrie Irving's day-to-day. And they're all done for the year. Like that's usually what I get from them. So when they say Tatum would have played in the second round, I say, you lying. He's probably out. But then, Tatum does say, I know for a fact I would have played in Game 2. And so I'm a little confused on this one. I got to be honest. I'm a little confused. And he's got a pretty good history of posting and playing. Like, I'm not.
Yeah. Can I just say something on that, though?
Yeah.
And look, I'm not trying to take shots at Jason Tatum. His comeback, again, you were ripping me when I said his comeback was amazing. And I still think it's an amazing comeback. But there's a difference between being durable and being tough. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
He's been durable in the past. No question about it. But is he like the first person you think of when you're like, oh, man, that's a guy who definitely doesn't care if he's 100% or not?
Well, he plays through injury, but he doesn't. But you're right. Does he gut it out and play well? Like the prime example would be that Game 7 against Miami.
Right.
Twists his ankle like in the first minute of the game. He played 41 minutes in that game. He played. He didn't come off the floor.
He did.
He also didn't do anything.
Right.
And then the wrist that he had against Golden State. Remember this?
Of course.
So he was just constantly grabbing the wrist and nursing the wrist, and he had the wrist, and he played. He just played like ass. So there is kind of he plays.
No,
he does play.
But what does he do with those,
Chris's distinction is a good one. Just because you're out there doesn't mean you're tough. He's durable. That's a good way to put it. I think that's a good way to look at it with Tatum.
All right, finally, number 3. Give me a Celtics-Bruins double standard that you're picking up this week.
Oh, yes. So this one, again, and I know you guys don't like to cross sports, but it just occurred to me because Charlie McAvoy and Jaylen Brown came in the exact same year, 2016-17. And so today, my colleagues in the Globe had columns. Tara Sullivan had one saying Charlie McAvoy should be the captain of the Bruins. And Chat Finn had one saying the Celtics should, entertain trading Jaylen Brown. And then I heard Beadle this week really defending McAvoy, because he had the broken hand. It wasn't so broken that his best entire, swing with the stick of the series was at Zach Benson at the end. But, still. And so it kind of blows my mind. You look at this. McAvoy has never won anything. He's been past the second round once in 10 years in his career. And that was the 2019 Stanley Cup final. He was a -5 in the series and had 1 point, which was a goal in Game 1. The last 3 postseasons, he is -6, -4, -3. He has 1 goal in his last 37 postseason games. But sure, make him the captain of the Bruins and kick the 2024 Eastern Conference and NBA Finals MVP, someone who's actually won something out of town. It's interesting to me, sort of the double standard there for those two guys. I don't hear a lot of, and maybe it's just because I don't take a lot of Bruins calls when we do the show with Jim because Ty does a masterful job before us. But but I just don't hear the same level of get this guy out of town angst, or this guy blew it for us, or we can't count on this guy with McAvoy that I do with Jaylen Brown.
Some of it is like, sorry,
I feel like pun intended, McAvoy skates more than any athlete in this town.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I can't stand him too, so I would like to see his ass shipped out.
Yeah. So some of it is you, Chris, because I think we've been on McAvoy a lot. I think McAvoy's the biggest reason they lost that series. To me, he's supposed to be that number one defenseman. Like, now you got me going. The number one defenseman can control the game. That guy can control the game. McAvoy never does. He's been a minus defenseman in the postseason now for 3 years running. So, like, they need him now. With their shortage, they need him to take over. He needs to be their best player or second best, and he's not.
So I don't think the Bruins' best players get nearly enough grief. I mean, I'm bigger on Pastrnak than McAvoy, but they're in the same bucket to me. Neither are a captain for a reason. Neither deserve to be a captain. If Pastrnak's your best player, you're porked. If Charlie McAvoy's your number one defenseman, your defense core sucks. He's not a number one. So they paid him to be one. He was projected to be one. He was tracking to be one. And the brakes got put on that thing about 4 or 5 years ago, and it hasn't reversed. So I'm with you on McAvoy. Absolutely. And I don't think Bruins fans are nearly tough enough on their best players. Their best players aren't good enough.
So the fans, I'll give you.
We have a long commercial-free segment. We'll wrap it up with calls for Gasper right after this. Sean and Lawrence. Go, Sean.
You keep saying, like, oh, I didn't actually watch the game, whether it's Patriots, Celtics, Bruins, whatever. Like, isn't your job as a talk show host to actually watch sports?
So I would say my job is to get you to listen.
That is the job.
Mission accomplished.
Take this job and shove. Felger and Mazz, 98.5, the Sports Hub.
I take full accountability. We definitely 100% could have used JT out there. I get it. Like, I understand, like, his body and how important that is. But I take full accountability, honestly. We had everything that we needed to win, and we just came up short at the end. And it just gave me more motivation to get back to work. I still feel like I'm getting better. Like, I know people think, like, this is the best version that they've ever seen, Jaylen. But I feel like I can level up even more because my mind is that strong. My will is that strong. So I plan on, like, really breaking down the details of, like, other aspects of my game and going into the summer to get even better. Because I take accountability, though. You're right, bro. I could have had 40 and helped us win. I could have got a couple extra rebounds. I could have, you know, had 1 or 2 less turnovers or whatever the case may be. So at the end of the day, I think that's a good take, bro. So you're right.
Okay, why'd you want to point that out?
Yeah, just because I don't think that one's gotten as much play. You know, I think people initially with the officiating thing, which you guys know how I feel about that. I don't love that when he does. I feel like it's counterproductive. You're never going to win that. You saw the stuff that happened. I mean, I'll just tell you this. If you see a Goble brother, Goble, is refereeing one of these NBA games, do yourself a favor. Don't even bother watching. It's going to be horrendous. Whether it's incompetence or something worse than that, it's going to be horrendous. And that was last night, Lakers Thunder, where Austin Reeves went up to Goble after the game. You had J.J. Redick saying that LeBron James gets the worst whistle of a star player he's ever seen. So I don't love when JB does the officiating thing, but I think a lot of people felt like when he did that and the other stuff, he was trying to duck responsibility, accountability for the Celtics not winning the series. I feel like the bite we just played has not gotten as much play, since then, where he's basically, saying directly, yeah, I take accountability.
Okay, before we let you go, thoughts on Vrabel, Rossini, and where we stand after this week? Another sort of drop of photos, and I would say a development, further context to their relationship, with her being pregnant on the boat and that whole thing, and I don't know if you feel an undercurrent of maybe something else coming or this reaching another phase. Just where do you stand on this story?
Well, have you guys seen or talked about the TMZ story from today, which is, adamant somebody from Rossini's camp that her eldest son is not named Mike after Mike Vrabel. It's after her brother. Have you seen that?
I saw that yesterday. I chose to ignore that.
That was yesterday?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a crock.
You think it's a crock? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously people are trying to tamp this down at this point. I thought it was interesting listening to Florio say something that more and more has come into my mind, which is the idea that if this keeps going and remember now, Mike said he was going to seek counseling. I don't know when he's going to do that or if that's still the plan, but he did say he would seek counseling as he would advise any player to do. Missing the third round of the draft was not seeking counseling. He was gone. I don't know counselors that work on Sundays, and he was gone for one day.
It was a marriage summit, yes.
Yeah, so that was different. So if there's some point where he goes to do that and it feels like the right thing to do for him and his family, which is the most important thing here, overall, and for him, is to step away this year. The Patriots are set up, as Florio said, to where he could take a leave of absence for a year and turn it over to Josh McDaniels. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't. But the longer this goes, the more that sort of comes into my mind. If this ever gets to a point where it starts to really impact the football team and football operations, I can't see them firing him. I certainly wouldn't do that. But maybe it gets to a certain point where he feels or the organization feels maybe it's best for him to step away. Honestly, the ideal time to do that would be the offseason. Again, I feel like a lot of people kind of fell for this whole him missing the third round of the draft thing. And they started talking about that, and now it impacts the team and all this other stuff. I think that was something they threw out there as red meat to try and make the story go away. I really do. I do not think missing the third round. It's significant from the standpoint of it's unusual for a coach to miss it, but it's not really significant in my mind from an overall operational standpoint. It's not. And so they kind of threw that out there in my mind to distract people and sort of quiet this thing down. So if this keeps going, maybe if he's going to miss OTAs or off-season stuff or whatever, that's more serious, and then you do that. But if this continues to drag on and you get to training camp, there becomes a certain point where if he does have to step away, it's like you can't step away and just come back and coach the team. You'd have to take some sort of leave of absence.
Okay, more on Gasper and Murray tomorrow?
Yes, starting at 11 right here on the Sports Hub.
Excellent. Look forward to tuning in. Christopher, thank you as always. We appreciate it.
See you guys.
See you, Chris.
Okay,
right.
The decks are cleared. It is truly an agenda-free Friday. Your phones. I see 2 open lines at 617-779-0985. Fill them, and we'll get right to your phones after Murray's 90-second update. There are no commercials here.